Well, welcome to another segment of So You Want to Be A. And let me tell you, those of you who are watching right now, if you've ever wanted to be an author, stay tuned to this program because we're talking with Lynn Rosenberg, who wrote a very unique book. And she has a lot of good information for part-time and prospective full-time authors right after this message. We'll be right back. My name is Brian Garner. I'm the host of an exciting new podcast, So You Want to Be A. Now, I believe that young people are so important to any society, so I want to help them by making sure they know all about an industry or a career path they might want to choose. And the way that you can help me is by contacting me if you have been in a particular industry and would like to share how to be a success, what kind of education is needed, what are the dangers, what are the upsides, what are the downsides, all information that will help young people to know before they go down the path toward a career if this is a career or a job that they would want to go into. And in this way, we will help our young people, we will help our society, and we will provide valuable and fantastic information that would take them years, possibly, to gain if they had to do it on their own. Please contact me so that I can interview you. You can have promotion of your business, of course, but also, most importantly, we will provide factual information to young people about a career path they might be choosing so that they know it's a good path and something that they actually want to do. Please contact me. I will be glad to interview you, and together we will be able to help young people. Thank you very much. Well, welcome to another segment of So You Want to Be A, and today we're talking about being an author. And we'll introduce our guest for the program in just a moment. Want to always, as we do, remind you, if you're new to the program, if you've never seen any of our segments, make sure that you sign up to make sure you get other episodes and segments of the show. And also make sure that you become a friend of the show and let other people know. We're always looking for other guests as well. So please spread the word. And we want to thank, as always, Franklin Printing of Las Vegas for being a sponsor of the program. If you would like to be a sponsor of this program because you work in a field that is related to job location and helping people find positions in various businesses, please contact me and we'll talk about that. Now, today, we're talking about being an author with Lynn Rosenberg, who lives right here in Las Vegas. Lynn, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so great to have you on. I'm an author myself, although I do it part-time. And we want to talk with you about a number of things, how you got started. Do you do it full-time, part-time? We want to talk also, and this is to give a hint to people who are watching so they'll know what to expect so they stay with us for the entire half-hour interview. What kind of people are good to be an author? What kind of people are not? Is there any kind of huge money outlay to keep yourself going as an author? What are the ups, the downs, the good, the bad, and the ugly of being an author? We're not trying to discourage people. We're just trying to let them know pretty much exactly what they'll run into if this is what their passion is, to be an author. So Lynn, tell us, how did you get started as being an author?
Well, shall I talk about what my first career was? I was told that
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
sure.
my first career, I spent many years as a teacher and then an administrator.
Okay.
From the time I was 10 years old, I had a wonderful fifth grade teacher who inspired me to read and just feel good about the whole art of teaching. And I was raised in the 50s and the 60s where careers for women were, you could be a nurse, you could be a secretary, or you could be a teacher. There was no such thing as lawyers and doctors. It just wasn't, wasn't the time for it. So I knew from the time I was 10 years old that I wanted to be a teacher. And in order to decide whether that was really something that was for me, I spent several summers being a counselor at a day camp to see if I really like working with children. I have a younger brother, so I did a lot of babysitting when we were kids. I babysat for children in my neighborhood, but
Sure.
I really didn't know that wasn't really teaching. I really didn't know whether I could work with children. So I spent several summers doing being a counselor at a day camp, and I worked with little 5-year-old girls. And I came out, feeling I really wanted to do this. And I went to a college in New York State that was very very versed in education. It was a school that prepared teachers. It was State University of Cortland, upstate New York. And I taught for many years. I taught English. I taught fifth and sixth grade, and I really enjoyed it. And then when my boys in the early 1990s, when my sons went to college themselves, I decided that I wanted more. And I felt that if at the end of a school year I could make a difference for 30 children, 25, 30 children, if I were a principal, I could make a difference to an entire school. And I went on, got a degree in administration, and then I became a principal in New York. And that's one of the things that brought me to Las Vegas, the fact that there was a job opening. And I was involved in private school education, and then I worked for the school district for 17 years.
Wow.
So
Now, we're not really saying, I don't think you're even saying that if a person wants to be an author, they need to spend 17 years in the school system. But here's what I do want to ask you.
I'm getting to that.
What part did that play in helping you as an author?
Well, okay, so that's exactly where I was going with the next thing. So I was an assistant principal, and they moved the assistant principals around a lot, and I met many, many teachers along the way. And I used to love talking to the young teachers and finding out where they came from, what the reason was for coming to Las Vegas, and what brought them here. So after I spoke to many, many people, both in work and various social activities that we had, I found that people came for a variety of reasons, but the tagline for everybody's story was, "But I never thought I'd live here." After I heard it 100 times, and everybody I tell the story to says, "Oh, that was me, and that was me also. I never expected to live here." After I heard it over and over again, I said to myself, there has to be a book here. So I devised a questionnaire, simple one-page questionnaire about why you came, what state you came from, uh, what did you do there, what brought you here, just very general questions. You have family there. And I asked people, the last question was, if I ever write this, if I ever publish this, is this something that can I include you in it? Everybody said yes. So I had a folder on my desk of all these papers. And then in June of 2019, I retired from the school district,
Okay.
and I was sitting outside on my swing, just relaxing, my first day of retirement. And a very good friend of mine said to me, "Well, now that you're retired, now you can write your book." And I said to her, "You know what? You're right." And that moment I went upstairs, sat at the computer, and I started. And the concept that I had was that I would have an entry from every one of the states, which I didn't have at that time. I had about 30, 35, 37 states. So that was my charge, to go find people from the other 13 states, because the name of my book is 50 Stories, 50 states, 50
Hold
stories,
that up. Yeah, let's take a look at that for a second. Yeah, look at that.
50
Now, my
states.
next logical question is, for the other 13 or so, did you get yourself involved in civic groups? Did you go to dance clubs? I mean, where did you find these people? Because you couldn't really walk around the street saying, "Hey, did you come from somewhere else?" I mean, how did you find these other 13 people?
Through contacts. I put something out on Facebook, and I
Okay.
said, book, and I these were the states that I needed, and I abbreviated the states, and I got
Right.
a response of 3 or 4 people. And just asking people, I need somebody from Vermont, I need somebody from South Carolina. And then I eventually got the 50 states. Then
Wow.
somebody said to me, "But you know what? It's not diversified enough. You need to go outside the United States. You need to have stories from people from different parts of the world." So I did that. I went, and things just fell in my lap. Like I went to the dentist, and I found out that the technician was from the Philippines. So I interviewed her. My nail tech person was from South Vietnam. So I interviewed her. And I just, it just fell into place for me. And then I wrote the book. It took me a year, and I wrote the book, and I had all the information I needed. And it's illustrated. I have pictures in here, and it's
Wow.
it was a fun thing to do. And to answer your initial question, did I have to be an educator in order to be a writer? Actually, I never thought of myself as a writer. I, 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 I realized I had gone through some papers after I retired, and I saw some speeches that I gave, and unfortunately a few eulogies that I wrote. And I said to myself, these are really okay. These are good. Maybe I could write. And I just got the idea to write. And the thing about writing is, it's more important to have an idea. It's more important to have an idea.
Just
And
if you could secure that phone,
I'm trying. I'm
make
doing
sure that phone, yeah, just
my best.
put
Uh,
scotch tape or something, but don't let
yeah.
it fall down, okay?
Okay.
Because we want to keep seeing you. Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
I know. So to have the ideas, and this kind of segues into the writing part of this program. To
Uh-huh.
have is the most important part. And you know how many people say, I have an idea, I have a story, but I don't know how to start. And
Mhm.
you just write. The best way to write is just to write. And we, ironically, this whole idea, so you want to be, we ran through the JCC, through my friend Neil Popish. We ran a 6-session workshop called "So You Want to Be a Writer," which is
Oh,
on YouTube. By the way, it's in you
okay.
look up, so the title, "So You Want to Be a Writer." That's exactly what
Yeah.
it's called. There are 6 sessions. It was facilitated by me, and each session talked about some other aspect of writing. So the first session was getting the ideas to the page, and it's exactly what we're talking about now. You have ideas. You find a way to either talk into a tape recorder, or um,
Yeah.
or type it out. Or the best thing is to make an outline. I used index cards. So index
Yeah.
cards,
Outline is good. Yeah.
because you can move them around to where you want your focus to be, and
Hmm.
and just to write, not to worry about grammar, not to worry about the paragraphs. Don't worry about that. That'll all come. You'll have an editor. You'll have somebody edit for you, and that'll all come. The important thing is to get the ideas out. So that was the first session of our So You Want to Be a Writer. The second session was about how to develop characters, and we had 6 or 8 people who were writers who live in Las Vegas, who came on
Hmm.
and who explained about their aspect of writing. They explained about their craft. So the second one was about character develop. How do you develop characters when you write? The third one was about creating voice in your characters. The fourth one was about, if you get all this done, how do you go and you choose a publisher? There are all different types of publishers. There's traditional, there's hybrid, there's self-publishing. That's something a lot of people don't know about. And the last session in our presentation was about promotion, which people don't realize. Writing
Right.
the book is the easy thing. The promotion and the publicity, that's the
Right.
hard part
Now
of
let's
writing.
talk about the kind of person who wants to be a writer. They have some ideas. Then they go on the internet to get help. I mean, our show will help them. This segment will help them. But there must be thousands of people saying, let me talk to you about how to be a writer. So what is your best advice not to get people so confused? Who do I trust? Who's good? Who's bad? Because, just like if you want to play guitar, there's a million guys going, I can teach you how to play guitar in a week, and you just wonder.
Well, I think that's a great question. And after I wrote my first book, I actually wrote 2 books. I'll talk about the second book in a moment.
Okay.
After the first book, I had people. I just got one yesterday, as a matter of fact. I got people calling me who were book promoters, and they would start out by saying, "Is this Lynn Rosenberg? Did you write? Are you the author of 50 States, 50 Stories?" Yes, yes. The first couple of times I went along with it. Oh, we have connections with the New York Times. We can get your book listed on the New York Times, and we can do this and we can do that. And we have people who read it and thought it was a great book. And you're very drawn in by this, because it massages your ego. But but after I started, I took the information down the first time, and I looked up the company, and the company had declared bankruptcy. So they
So you
ask
have
you
to be careful. You have to be careful.
have to
Yeah.
be very careful. So to go back to your question, I think that the best way, and this is how I got an editor, and this is how I got a publisher, the best way is through contact. to know somebody who is a writer, who published, and somebody that you trust, and then you go from there. You get information and you gather information, and you use your gut about what you think is the best fit for you. I found somebody. I found a wonderful editor. Actually found her online, asked some questions, got some references, and she turned out to be very approachable. She was very good. Anybody who writes and doesn't get an editor, to me, that's like somebody going into court and representing themselves. It's not a good thing to do. You really need to have an editor. You need to have somebody there who will clean up your work.
Yeah. Now, another thing to talk about is it's kind of a dual-edged sword to me, because I have been involved. I'm a songwriter. I've been involved in some songwriting groups, and I write songs that are pleasing to me, and that's the way I write them. And I grew up in the era with the Beatles and Crosby, Stills and Nash and all that. Well, some of the groups that I've been associated with criticize up one side, down the other my songs because I'm not writing them like today's songs. Well, I don't want to do that. So although I do believe that a new writer could get help by a local group that doesn't have a money interest in helping you, I think you have to be a little careful, because people like Johnny Cash was told, your songs are too simple, they'll never go anywhere. If he would have listened to them, we would not have the pleasure of listening to Johnny Cash, if you like that style of music. But you want to make sure, I think, that you are true to your own voice, your inner voice, because people enjoy my original songs, but if I take them to a songwriting group, they go,
If you listen to any of them, and we've done this, my husband and I enjoy this, so we do it a lot when we find programs like this. If you listen to the backstory of movies that became blockbuster movies, I mean, example, Dirty Dancing. Dirty
Yep.
Dancing, 10 years to make. Nobody wanted to touch it. It all
Right.
came from a journal, a diary of a young woman who was in that milieu, who kept a journal and spoke to somebody who was a director in production, and she loved it, but nobody wanted to do anything with it. Nobody wanted to touch it. And that's not an uncommon story, that something that becomes a great book, a great movie, a great TV series, often is not greeted with open arms. So
Especially by the reviewers.
going back to your point, you have to believe in yourself. It's important. Like when I wrote my second book is called Thelma and Lou, A Circular Love Story, and it's based on a true story of my parents being married and divorced after 30 years. And in my work, in my revisionist history, I tried to get them back together again. The reason I'm telling you this is because I ran this my draft by my book club. I belong to a book club with 12 women. Every month we get together. Somebody recommends a book and we read it. I let them read the draft because I wanted a woman's opinion. I wanted an opinion of somebody who was divorced. I wanted somebody who was widowed. I wanted somebody to look at the tone of my writing. Was the main character too angry? Was she not angry enough? Was it realistic she would go back with her ex-husband? Just things that I needed. I needed the public to flesh out for me. So if you have people, and I also suggest the other thing that I did, and I'm thinking about doing it again. Ollie has a wonderful course. The Ollie Ollie through UNLV.
Okay.
There's what's called Writing Week, which meets once a week for about 12 or 13 weeks. The instructor's name is Richard Cram, and it's 12 people, 12, 13, 14 people who share their writing. And it's all on Zoom now. It used to be live, but now it's on Zoom. You send 2 or 3 pages. You have to have like at least 300 words, which is 1 page. You send that to everybody. People look at it, people read it, people critique it, and you get feedback. It's very, very valuable because you think what you write is good, or you think it's not good. But it's important to get feedback on how, like one of the things I was interested in is the flow, a natural flow. is it something that you're engaged in? Is it something that you want to turn the page, and since
Sure.
my second book came out about 2 months ago, and the reviews of it, people are saying the same thing. I couldn't wait to turn the page. I left the last 30 pages because I didn't want it to end. It's very relatable. The characters are characters that I know in my life. Those are the things that you want. You want to be able to connect. You want people to feel like there's some kind of there's some kind of connection when you read or when you watch television or you watch a movie. At least for me, if I can't relate to at least one character, if I can't root for them, I call it root for them.
Yeah.
I'm usually not engaged in something. There has to be some kind of connection. Oh, I did that. Oh, I said that. Oh, I experienced that. Oh, I really have a feeling for that. Oh, that really touches me. Otherwise, what's the point? I mean, the whole point of art is to is to connect with people. And if you
Sure.
can't do that, if you can't do that, then then you don't have a marketable product.
Now, let me ask you, what are would you feel, let's talk to a person who's sitting there with their mom or dad going, Dad, Mom, I really want to be a writer. What are the negatives of being a writer? And number two, what would make a person who's you don't think would make a good writer? Tell me those two things. What are the downsides, and who would maybe not be so good to be a writer, even though they want to do it?
Well, those are two great questions, and I'm going to answer them to the best of my ability with my limited
Okay.
knowledge of being a writer for a very short time in my life. Don't
Now
forget,
we've got about 5 minutes, so you'll have to kind of tailor make your answers, but I do want to get that information
I would
into
say
this segment. Yeah.
I would say that the downside is that, I mean, for me, I'm not looking to make a living out of this. This is not something that I'm residual checks. They're like minimal. I still haven't really made back what I've invested in the
Sure.
books. But that wasn't my purpose. My purpose was
No.
I had to stay. I don't need the money. I had the extra money to be able to invest. So the one downside is, if you're looking to do this as a young person, as a career, I would say that's kind of dicey. I would suggest doing something else and writing as an avocation. And then if you get really good at it, and if your stuff sells, then you can move into it. I
Yeah.
have a brother who's been a writer for
Good
30
point.
years. And it took him, honestly, it took him a good 10-15 years to really break into writing. And he's very talented. He's done a lot of Hallmark things. He's done screenplays. He's written his own novels, but it didn't happen overnight. We joke that he was an overnight success, but it took 15 years. So
Yeah.
that's one thing. If money is, if you're independently wealthy and you can do it as a love, as an avocation, I would say, if you have a thought, you have something you want to say, you want to share, definitely do it. That would be the downside.
Right. And number two, who would not make a good writer? What personality trait, what temperament would not be good for someone who, even though they just want to be a writer, you might save them wasting their time?
Well, you have to have a lot of. First of all, you have to be literate. I mean, that's the thing. You have to,
Or
you know, you you,
what?
you have you have to be together a sentence. You have to be able to write a sentence. That's the first thing. If you're
Right.
if you're not a literate person, I would suggest finding something else to do. But
Sure.
I would
Or
say that,
become literate. Yeah. Either one.
or
Yeah.
right. You have to have a lot of patience. People think that writing is the hard part. I swear it's not. The writing, if you have a story to tell, the writing comes. The hard part is getting it published and then promoting it. And the getting it published part, as many times as you have to read it and reread it and reread it, that it's coming out of your ears, you can't look at it anymore. So you have to be a very patient person. You have to be able to accept criticism. You can't say, this is my work. This is my work, and I'm not going to, this is the way it is, and I'm not going to do anything with it. And people either like it or they don't like it. No, you have to be patient. You have to be able to accept criticism. You have to be able to, you have to be able to put in the time. I wrote this, fully. It took me a year to write it. It took me another year to edit it and rewrite it and perfect it and take out some things and put them someplace else and eliminate other things. And then when you have like they say, 80,000 words is a novel. So my book is my second book is 80,000 words. It's just what it is. And you watch as you're doing it. You're watching the word count, and you're feeling encouraged. But you have to realize is you can't snap your fingers and say I'm a writer. To do this the first shot out of the box, and I'm not going to redo it. You have to be patient, and you have to be able to trust people who will read it and accept their ideas and their criticism.
Right. Now, one thing I will say is that you can find local printers that if you put the manuscript in the right form, they will print your book for you in what's the binding? It's called a perfect bind, right? Where it's glued. Yeah, it's not a perfectly bound book with stitching and all that, but you can relatively inexpensively go to a local printer and get your book printed. Now, it's not necessarily published by a publishing house, but that's the way I do my books, and I go out to various events and I sell the books and I get the books out there. And I'm really not trying to sell my books. I'm trying to get the books out there because I have some things in the books that I've written that I want to impart to people to try to help our society improve. So you can use local printers, and that's not too difficult of a way to go to get maybe your first book published or printed,
No, but the printing, in my opinion, the printing is not the hard part. It's the editing and getting it ready to print.
Yeah.
And the actual mechanics of printing are it's a layout person, and it's a mechanical thing, and they do it and they lay it out and they show it to you, and you like it or you have a different idea. But it's once that book is printed and it's ready to go, you're done. I mean, any mistakes that you make, oh well, too bad, so sad. So
editing is important.
I can't emphasize enough. I have a friend who's very, very bright, wrote a novel, edited it herself. You know what? It's full of errors. It's full of errors. So
give me an example of a couple of the errors. I want to hear just a couple of the errors that you noticed.
Spelling errors, punctuation errors, time sequence, things that didn't. This is what an editor does. An editor says to you, it's 9 years, but the time sequence doesn't work with the dates that you gave. 9 years is not. And as you're writing it, even if it's true, I mean, my book, a lot of it was true. So what happened in 1968, it really happened in 1968, based upon the trajectory of the novel and things I did change. The dates didn't all work. So I didn't realize that when I was writing it, but my editor picked up on that.
Kind of close to it, when you're so as we're wrapping up the segment, if prospective writers would like to talk to you, but not take all your time, and people would like to find out how to obtain your books, please give your contact information and give it twice.
Okay.
Any way you want people to reach you.
Okay. All right. My contact information. First of all, I have a website, so you can go to my website. It's lynnsrosenberg.com.
Say that again.
lynnsrosenberg.com. That's my website. My work on it. It has the podcast on it. It has this whole "So You Want to Be a Writer" YouTube segments on it. That's one way. You can also contact me via email. Actually, on the website, there's a section at the very bottom with a box that says "Please contact the author." So or you can. I just give you my email address: lynn1013@cox.net.
Say that again.
lynn1013@cox.net.
Fantastic.
And I'd be happy to listen to anybody's concerns. I'm certainly not a professional. I wrote 2 books in my life, and I wrote them at a late stage in my life. But I will tell you, the desire to say something, the ability to say it, and feeling, I enjoyed writing these books. I can't even, first of all, it was during the pandemic, so it was such a great thing to be able to do, to have a job to do each day. I loved it, especially in the afternoons in the summer when it's so hot and you really can't go out. I would write for 2 hours, and it was just, it's a great, it's a great outlet if you have something to say. And that's the best recommendation I can give it.
Yeah, and it's so great to have you on the program, because there's 2 things before we wrap up I want to say. number one, you're helping prospective writers with a lot of information. It would take them weeks, months, years, hours to find. And if a particular father or a particular mother doesn't want their son or daughter to be a writer, but the kid says, Mom, Dad, I really want to be a writer, we might be fostering having them sit down together. Maybe the first time they've sat down together and done something together, and the mother says to the son, all right, you want to be a writer? Watch this show. Come on, we're going to watch it together. And then when the son still says he wants to be a writer, maybe the mother says, all right, we're going to find the money to send you to a writing camp. We're going to get you a bunch of paper and a bunch of pens, and we're going to support you. And there we've bettered the society, bettered that family. And I want to thank you for being part of that.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And just know that anybody that really succeeds, when they tell you their story, there's always a person who believed in them. Sometimes it's a grandmother. Very often it's a grandparent. Sometimes it's a teacher. But if you believe in a child or a sibling or even a parent, if you believe in that, that's the best gift you can give them. And then they have to stay. You have to let them see where it goes.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, thank you for watching this segment of So You Want to Be, and this time an author. Please tell your friends and anybody who is in an industry who might like to be on my program, promote their business, and also talk about the career they're in to help young people decide if they want to go into that career. My home office number is 702-912-0687. 702-912-0687. Make sure you subscribe, watch the other segments, and tell young people and anybody in transition about this show. They just might watch a segment that would really help them. And again, thank you to Franklin Printing for supporting this program. We'll see you next time on So You Want to Be a ...
Thank you.
See you next time.
Thank you.